It's great so many turned up here, despite this being the last session. So thank you for that. Yeah, we're here to talk about OPA today. Are you all familiar with that? Or
show of hands.
How many
users?
How many users of OPA do we have here?
Half.
Yep. Cool. Yeah, we'll do both an intro and a deep dive, so hopefully there's something for everyone.
Yeah. Okay, so do I do quick intros? Yeah, hello everybody. I'm Charlie. I work on the developer relations team at Styra with Anders. We're both OPA maintainers, and yeah, we're happy to present to you today. Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, I think you already said it. I'm Anders, and I work in the same team.
So yeah, I like to start these presentations just to get people thinking about what is policy. I think it's a word that we're meant to do this to start it off. Just get people thinking about what is policy. Everybody's got a different idea about what policy means to them, or the first thing that comes into their mind. But I think for the purposes of this presentation and for thinking about Open Policy Agent, it's important to think about policy as being many different things. Anywhere in your different applications you're working on or platforms you're working with where you need to implement something that looks like a rule, whether it's authorizing users, granting different tenants in a Kubernetes platform access to do particular things there, defining custom rules and CI jobs, implementing business policy and applications. All of these things are within scope for what we're talking about today. So that's what policy is. Policy is rules, and I made reference to various technical policies there, but often policy is kind of legal policy or policy that might be written in your employee handbook. Today we're talking about policy as code. That's what Open Policy Agent is really all about. And this is just an example showing a sort of policy in natural language versus a policy as code. As you can see, it's something that you could write down and express as code. That's what we're talking about. So how does that's his title? That's a shame. How does policy as code work? So how does OPA work with policy as code? So as a sort of simple model is that you provide some information about a decision that you're interested to make or have OPA make for you, and you've preloaded OPA with some policy configuration that you want it to evaluate, and you get a decision out. And that's what policy as code looks like from a caller of OPA. How that looks in a sort of more architectural sense is that you might have a request arriving from a user to one of your services. That service, it might be a service you've built, it might be a service which is one of our existing integrations with OPA, makes a call into OPA for a policy decision. That's called a query. And this can be any JSON value, representing an operation which has maybe been taken by a user, or a new resource which is looking to land in a Kubernetes cluster. That's the sorts of things that people are commonly running policy on. OPA is your judge in this scenario and takes that JSON message, runs some Rego policy, and returns to you a JSON value as well. So it's JSON in and JSON out. At the same time, OPA is loading in policy and data in order to make sure it's ready to make those decisions. So how that looks is, while OPA's waiting for requests, it makes sure that it has the most recent version of the policy bundle that you've configured it to use, and it's at the same time also sending information about the decisions which it's made to a decision log store if you've configured it to do so. This is useful for auditing use cases, but it's also helpful for debugging and monitoring too. So why does policy as code work? There are lots of people using policy as code today. We see them as maintainers of the project. They're using OPA to do it. Why does it work for them? Policy as code allows you to decouple policy logic from your applications and from the services and platforms that you're building, and to standardize it. And this allows developers to focus on building business value in their applications without needing to implement the same policy controls that perhaps others in the organization have already built. Similar to how you work on other code, policy as code can be version controlled and collaborated on using standard tools like GitHub and so on, where you can use pull requests to check that changes to policy are as you would expect and have gone through the correct channels. It's also possible to share common security policies that your organization may have between teams, similarly to how you may share a shared library or something in other applications. Policy as code works in much the same way. So as a final point, and something that we'll touch on more as we go through, code is something that you can statically analyze, and you can use software development tools to help you work on code. And that's something we've made some good improvements to for Rego in recent years. So that's an important benefit as well. I want to highlight some sort of, use cases, or highlight some others who are using OPA and talking about it publicly. There are some people who raised their hands at the start of the session, like if you're interested in speaking about OPA or would like to promote OPA, the use of OPA within your organization, please do get in touch. We didn't prompt these people to come and say great things about OPA. This is a quote from a presentation at the co-located Istio Day last year. OPA provides us a generic way to apply policy consistently across all our services and systems. That's exactly what we're trying to do with OPA, and this is a great talk and use case for our project if you're unsure about how to use it and how it fits in. Similarly, yesterday, also coincidentally from Bloomberg, another great session. When the recording is out, I'd encourage you to watch it. We're talking about how OPA allows them to decouple access control logic from the rest of their services. This is for a data access and sort of data service that they're using OPA for. So just to give a quick overview of some community highlights, something that happened last week I wanted to share. We had a question asked, and the asker had started oh, that's gone out of line, that's a shame. Anyway, they've fallen in love with OPA. I wanted to highlight this sort of fun, one of the fun things about being a maintainer is you get to see these queries come in, and yeah, people do love OPA, and it's definitely a highlight of being a maintainer on a project, is to see things like this. But in the since the last KubeCon, we've also passed 10,000 GitHub stars, so we've got more than 10,000 internet points now, so you can congratulate the project on that. But maybe slightly more tangible is that we've made some significant improvements to the Rego debug adapter protocol support. So in the Regal linter and language server, our colleague Johan has added support for the debug adapter. This is an important usability feature. It's exactly what I was talking about, how with code you can use programming tools to work on it and then improve it more effectively. So I'm going to give a short update about OPA Gatekeeper as well. We have had some slides. Anders and I work more on the core OPA project and rule engine. There's a sibling project in the Open Policy Agent org called OPA Gatekeeper. I'm sure some of you here are using it or have heard of it at least. And it allows you to configure policy controls for Kubernetes admission using custom resources. They've shared some updates and have also published some new releases since the last KubeCon. One of the important things that you can now do in OPA Gatekeeper, and it's also happened since the last KubeCon, is that we've released OPA 1.0. This consolidates and standardizes a new version of Rego going forward. This new version is now available in OPA Gatekeeper as well. You just need to make sure to set your source version field. On top of that, they've made some improvements to the PubSub interface, as well as some improvements to the Gator CLI. This is a CLI tool Gatekeeper users can use to perform checks and validations on their policies prior to rolling them out. So if you're an OPA Gatekeeper user, I'd encourage you to update and check those updates out. They also have some improvements for exporting violations to disk. And are going to be graduating their validating admission policy integration to beta as well. So I made a reference to OPA 1.0. That's something, obviously a major milestone for the project. We released at the very end of last year. If you've missed this, there are a few things you might want to check out to get you up to speed. Most importantly, we have some upgrade documentation on the OPA website you can check out. And there's a release blog as well, where it sort of sets the scene for this, the sort of meaning of this update more generally. And also you can read through the recent releases. We're on 1.30 now as well. So before I hand over to Anders, I want to just give a quick overview of some upcoming roadmap suggestions and give you a sort of overview of the kinds of things we're thinking about at the moment. And yeah, as I go through these, I want to just remind you that these are kind of open for discussion. I've tried to provide the links, we'll provide the issue numbers if you do want to go and look them up. So yeah, bear that in mind. First thing we're considering is what we're calling streaming tests. You're familiar when you're perhaps with other tools, when you run unit tests, you find as you run the test suite, the results are streamed back to you as the tests are run and as they pass or fail. Just as an example, as a short comparison, here's the comparison between Go test and OPA test today. As you saw, the Go test would print out the test results as they came in, whereas OPA waits for the full test suite to complete before showing you the results. That's something that we would like to improve. This also makes it easier for us to integrate with language tooling and provide kind of live feedback for those running tests within their editors. In addition to that, we're also, this is one that we're particularly keen to get people's feedback on. OPA famously doesn't have like an OR operator, and we're also considering an alternative operator, which I suppose is like a kind of perhaps more familiar to maybe those using languages with things like ternary operators to allow you to kind of attempt something, and if it's undefined, use a default instead. This is not something that we've really been able to make progress with before, but we believe that both these two features are something that would potentially help those new to Rego. The OR, logical OR in particular, is something we find a lot of users expect to find in Rego, even though it doesn't exist. And the alternative operator, again, allows you to express things that at the moment are quite verbose. So, yeah, in the meantime, you can't do that. You should check out this blog post written by Anders. It's one of our most popular blog posts on the Styra blog, so yeah, do have a look at that in the meantime. There's plenty of ways to do it already, but at the same time, we're keen to get feedback. I might let Anders talk about this one. It's one that's close to his heart, and he's got some ideas about it.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, so another feature pretty high up on the roadmap is this of string interpolation, and exists in many other languages. One reason why we feel this would help a lot is the sprintf built-in that many use today to include variables or values in their output, like when you have a rule and it returns a warning or a deny message or something, and you want to include a variable. One problem is that we see a lot, and something that trips up a lot of people is that they have this rule body with all these conditions, and they did everything right, but so the policy evaluates up until the last line when they do a sprintf in order to build that deny message or something, because one of the references they're trying to insert in the string is not defined. So you might say like, warning, the user must be 21 years old or whatever, and so you say like user.age, but what if you have a user and there's no age defined? Then the whole rule is going to fail, or it's not going to evaluate. But that could have been like, it wasn't really important information. It was just something you wanted in a string. So if that would be the case, you'd rather just print like unknown or question mark or whatnot. So it is both a nice new feature. It will make for some better looking policies, but it is also an important feature in that aspect. Yeah, I think this is what I covered, right? But yeah, basically an example of that would be where you, in this case, you reference like the the groups or the tester group, and it's not there, and things fail, and that wasn't really something you'd expect. So it's frustrating for us when we support someone and we see like they did everything right, and so it's frustrating on both ends.
So yeah, just with the roadmap, we put out a video on the OPA YouTube channel recently, where I talked to Johan, who's another OPA maintainer, about a number of other items on the roadmap. If you want to get up to speed, that's a great place to get started, and all of the issues and things are linked in there as well. So yeah, if you want to look into this in more detail, do have a look.
Great. All right, so I'll close this off with talking a little bit about OPA performance. This is something I have been working on a lot for the past 3 months or so. Okay, so why have I been working on performance? There might be other more pressing issues in OPA, and you'd be right. It's not the most pressing issue. OPA is generally very performant, and for normal kind of workloads and policies, there's rarely a reason to worry about it. But what we did a few years ago is that we built a linter for Rego. This is Regal, which we'll talk more about. But we decided, like, since we are Rego guys, or we are OPA guys, like, of course we should build the linter in Rego too. And eventually we saw, like, okay, a linter, that's going to help a lot of people because it can automate and help you get support without having to ask someone. You can just write something and you can do your best, and a linter will help you and tell you what you did wrong and suggest a better way to do it. So that culminated into also making Regal a language server. A language server is basically it's part of the language server protocol spec, where you have a server that editors like VS Code or Vim or whatnot can talk to get information such as linting issues, but also things like autocomplete, evaluation, debugging, and so on. And the goal of all this, and why we saw performance is gonna matter, is because, of course, we want to provide the best possible editing experience for anyone working with Rego. We know it's already a lot to learn a new language. It is a different language. A lot of people find it hard to get started and so on. So what we at least want to ensure is, like, you have the best possible tools as you work on that and as you're trying to learn. So that's Regal, and if you haven't tried that, I encourage you to do that. But back to performance, why was that important for a linter and a language server? So we have around, already 2 years in, we have around 100 linter rules. So all in all, we have about 15,000 lines of Rego. So that is already there. We're kind of way past what a normal gatekeeper policy would look like, or an, I don't know, Terraform validation or whatever. So there's a lot of Rego. And adding to that, this Rego is evaluated for any file you send to the linter, or because that's just how it's going to work. So if you have 200 files, which is about what Regal itself is, you're going to have to multiply that with all these lines that have to be evaluated each time. So that will be about 3 million lines of Rego. And that's also even more off the charts of a normal Rego evaluation. And at that scale, of course, performance is going to matter. But still, already without optimizations, we found, like, on a modern MacBook Pro, doing this takes about like 2-3 seconds. Isn't too bad. But since Regal works in parallel, and if you run the same linting in GitHub Actions or something where you don't have all these cores to parallelize, it's going to be a lot slower. And it might even be like minutes, because we only have a single CPU or maybe two, and it's a CPU-bound workload. Additionally, the language server is going to lint all the time. Possibly even every time you make a key press in your editor, it's going to send, the client's going to send like, lint this again, lint this again, lint this again. And if that takes 2 seconds, you're probably not going to wait like 2 seconds between each key press. So that was another aspect where we needed this to be very fast. So we don't do a whole lot of work in Regal ourselves. It's basically just evaluating OPA. So if we wanted a faster linting, we had to have a faster OPA. So that's what we did. And the way we did this was basically trying to make sense, identify where is it slow, or why is it slow for 3 million lines of Rego at each key press. So identify where the hot paths are. And of course, it's a Go application, OPA, so that means reducing memory allocations is likely the most effective way of making something faster. Another kind of area we focused is to improve the runtime of OPA's built-in functions. There's a lot of them. We mentioned like the sprintf one. I think there's 180 built-in functions or something like that. There's a lot of built-in functions. And of course, when you do an optimization like this, we'll first start to look into those who are called the most often. But there's also other optimizations like data structure, what kind of data types are we using, what kind of data structures, like the basic stuff really. And a few optimizations we did are mostly going to be beneficial for Regal, but a majority of them are going to are beneficial for any policy evaluations. It's just OPA. So from OPA version 70, which is December, that is so essentially from OPA 1.0 and onwards is where all these performance improvements have landed. So yeah, I don't think we have time to go into all of these improvements, but as you can see just from these PR summaries, a lot of it is about avoiding allocations on the hot path. And just to provide one example of a thing we did is previously, if you did this code here is from the count function, and you call count a lot in Rego, because you want to know how many numbers or how many items are in this array or this set. So that's one example. And what we did here, whereas we before would say like every time we did a count, we asked the computer or the runtime for some memory because we need a number that we can send back to the user. So if we called count 1 million times, we would ask the runtime 1 million times for. And this could have been for the same number. And whereas now we do interning of numbers, so if you ask 1 million times, we will still, and it's always the same number, you'll always get the same number back. Or rather, you'll always just allocate for one number in the runtime. And the result of all these work is basically this. So, and this is on my MacBook Pro. 10,000 lines of Rego. From OPA version 70, we were up at almost 2 seconds, and this is much longer in a CD pipeline like GitHub Actions. And from OPA version 1 is when we start to see like real improvements. The improvements drop off some, but so from OPA version 1 to 0, we're down to almost 1 second. So it's a 73% faster evaluation gatekeeper the board. And this, of course, benefits not just us, Regal, but anyone using OPA, conftest, gatekeeper, or whatnot. And yeah, the red bars are memory, which is not as much, but since we avoid memory allocations, it does have a good impact there too.
Okay, great. all the more reason to upgrade. If anybody happens to do their own benchmarking, please do share them with us on the Slack or via some other channel. We'd love to see if the results match your own. So yeah, I think we've got about 5 minutes left for some questions.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great, thanks. No questions.
Everybody's dying to get home.
There's some hands over here.
So sorry if this has been part of the presentation before, but I was curious, like, what other alternatives you considered when developing Rego, and what the thought process was, why using this declarative language and not the other, and
so what other approaches was considered?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the obvious other alternative approach would have been to build the linter in Go. OPA is built in Go. It would perform faster. It's like we have more things to tweak. But why we didn't is pretty much because then we wouldn't have had this. We have learned a lot about Rego ourselves and like performance characteristics. But just the fact that Regal is also written in Rego has meant that like when we lint Regal itself, so basically we built a linter in Rego to lint the Rego in the linter was built in Rego. So that there's a lot of Rego, and that has helped us. It's kind of dog fooding, or both to improve OPA and Regal and the ecosystem at large. So even if I talked about performance here, but we have fixed a lot of bugs in OPA in the last couple of years that have emerged in Regal, and because we have used Rego so much, and of course maybe not always for things that it was intended to, but so it's been a learning journey, and I think it paid off for both us and for all these projects.
Like I guess also where the linter is today, where almost everything is, all the rules and the language server completions are written in Rego, like that. When we started the project, we did have some that were written in Go rules that were written in Go. So we did kind of imagine that we would try and have some in Rego and some in Go. We've actually been able to get rid of the Go ones quite recently. So. Yeah, we're kind of on that path now, but it was something that we did leave open when we were first working on it. Any other questions? Okay, all good. Please do scan the QR code and leave feedback on the session. We're able to present as a graduated project each KubeCon. And yeah, we do read the feedback that you write, and we'd always try and make sure that it's what people who are attending the KubeCon events are interested to hear. So yeah, and if you're interested to go back to any of the slides, the other link is on the other side. Thanks very much.